You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
Hey folks, Maria Varmazes here, host of N2K's T- Space Daily podcast. Today I'd like to share a fantastic podcast called The Carbon Copy. I think you'll find it as insightful as I do. 3/4 of Americans are worried about climate change. Many of us feel disempowered by the scope of the problem and disconnected from the scale of solutions. The Carbon Copy is a podcast about the technology and business forces that will help us harness those solutions. Longtime climate and energy reporter Stephen Lacey brings deep knowledge and insights. Each week, he digs into the business and technology stories around the rise of clean energy, the challenge to fossil fuels, how the global energy system is transforming in dramatic ways, and the people making it all happen. Don't miss it. Follow The Carbon Copy on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
There's nothing worse than relying on a legacy SIM that your security team has outgrown, especially when it impacts your ability to detect real incidents. Hunter's SOC platform offers built-in, always up-to-date detection rules and automatic correlation that allows SOC analysts to focus on higher-value tasks that impact your organization. It's time to move to a platform that reduces risk, complexity, and cost for the SOC. It's time to replace your SIM. Learn more by visiting hunters.security today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CyberWire's Research Saturday. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is our weekly conversation with researchers and analysts tracking down the threats and vulnerabilities, solving some of the hard problems, and protecting ourselves in a rapidly evolving cyberspace. Thanks for joining us.
It all started with deployment of our technology at a net new customer opportunity. So in the process of deploying the technology, our threat hunters uncovered some hands-on keyboard activity that we soon attributed to Vanguard Panda.
That's Thomas Etheridge. He's Chief Global Professional Services Officer at CrowdStrike. The research we're discussing today is titled Business as Usual, Falcon Complete MDR Thwarts Novel Vanguard Panda Tradecraft. And who is Vanguard Panda, we suppose?
Vanguard Panda is a threat actor that we have been tracking since the mid-2020s. We believe them to be of China-nexus, and they are focused primarily on targeting multiple sectors, including aviation, technology, and the defense sectors. CISA recently reported on this threat actor in May of 2023 as targeting critical infrastructure organizations across multiple industry verticals throughout the U.S. and its territories.
Well, let's walk through this together. It's an interesting one. Can we go through it step by step here? I mean, what was the first indication to your team that something was amiss?
As I mentioned earlier, our threat hunting team uncovered some hands-on keyboard activity that we knew to be malicious activity. We notified the managed detection and response team, who took some quick remediation steps by network quarantining the machine that the threat actor was leveraging to carry out some of its tradecraft. One of the things that we noticed in doing some of our investigation is that the threat actor was moving very, very quickly in the environment and had what appeared to be a very good understanding of the customer's infrastructure in order to carry out the commands and the tradecraft of being able to traverse through the customer's environment. So they were clear to us that they had been in the environment for a while, had established some persistence mechanisms, and had good familiarity with the overall infrastructure of the customer's environment.
Now, when you say hands-on keyboard activity, what exactly does that entail?
It's typically picked up, Dave, when we see a threat actor using commands or running tools on an environment that we either know those commands or tools to be malicious in nature, or the combination of commands and actions that a threat actor performs in an environment, the combination of those tools at the same time or in near proximity to one another typically is an indicator that the user that's performing those actions is not a legitimate user. And that's when we would typically send a notification, or if we're providing a managed service like our MDR, take corrective action to try to quarantine or stop that threat actor from being able to easily traverse through the environment.
So, Tom, without getting too much in the weeds with some of the technical things here, can you kind of take us through an overview of the kinds of tools that you all are seeing them use here, the tradecraft that you all witnessed?
Sure, Dave. We reported in our blog that the malicious activity was involving listing processes, doing network connectivity testing, gathering some user and group information, mounting network shares, and then enumerating domain trust over WMI and listing DNS zones over WMI. So the threat actor was doing this pretty quickly, which was also an indication of the familiarity that they had with the environment.
Now, in the blog, you draw particular attention to JSP compilation. You highlight that as being a bit of a giveaway here. Are there any specific elements that are worth highlighting with that?
I think the importance of that in the blog is that this threat actor was doing a lot of cleanup after their actions. They were moving evidence of their activity. They were deleting logs and evidence of their activity. One of their slip-ups was missing that particular log source, and that is what the investigators uncovered to tip them off to the threat actor also operating extensively in the environment.
Can we talk a little bit at a high level here? I mean, as you describe this, you engage with a client and they deploy your specific technology, and this is discovered. I assume that this client wasn't running completely unguarded before. Is it a typical thing? Does this? I guess how often does this happen where a company will try a different technology or switch vendors and discover that someone's been camping out in their system for quite a while?
This happens quite frequently, Dave, with the deployment of some of the advanced EDR technologies that exist in the market today. Picking up novel and previously undetected threats is something that's quite commonplace. But CrowdStrike has a common theme we communicate to victims, that the threat actors aren't breaking into your environment, they're logging into your environment. So one of the pieces of tradecraft related to Vanguard Panda is that they heavily leverage stolen credentials to gain initial access to their targets. And that was the case here as well. The threat actor was able to gain access to the infrastructure using credentials that were probably procured through the access broker markets, and was using those credentials to carry out their tradecraft, and had gone undetected if not for the advanced EDR technology and the threat hunting capabilities of our Falcon Overwatch team.
And when we talk about advanced capabilities here, are we looking at behavioral things and in addition to signatures? I mean, my understanding is that it's quite a cocktail of capabilities that come into play here.
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, it's understanding through rich intelligence gathering and integration capabilities, the tradecraft that threat actors are carrying out. So what are the the things that threat hunters and investigators and security professionals need to understand about how the threat actor could be using specific tools or tradecraft to operate within their environment. The second piece of this is on the identity side of the house, understanding credentialing, privileged access, systems that are critical to protect, and honestly having capabilities like multi-factor authentication and implementing zero trust capabilities to help thwart threat actors from simply being able to steal credentials or procure credentials and then be able to use those credentials to go navigate through the environment without being challenged. Those are some big things that we talk to victims and organizations about from a security posture perspective.
And what about the incident response in a case like this, where you know that you have someone who's had some persistence for a while? What are the sorts of things that an organization goes through to make sure that they're truly have cleaned out these bad guys?
First is just getting that rich visibility across the environment. So deploying advanced EDR tools to gain that visibility and being able to threat hunt using those rich intelligence indicators, understand whether or not some activity being performed in the environment is legitimate or illegitimate. So being able to do that around the clock, I think is very important. Threat actors don't just operate Monday morning at 9 o'clock to Friday at 5 o'clock. They're typically operating off hours. So being able to hunt continuously against the infrastructure, I think, is really important. The second piece is, I mentioned earlier, understanding identities, credentialing in the environment, and critical assets that may require additional levels of protection, where we may want to challenge a user with a second factor of authentication in order to validate that they are who they claim to be. I think that's really important. And then the last thing, which I think is a key focus for managed detection and response type capabilities, it's being able to take that corrective action very, very quickly. We reported in our annual threat report this past year that breakout time had dropped to about 84 minutes, so just under 2 hours from the time a threat actor gains access to the environment until the time they can move laterally towards a target. Being able to take that corrective action within that 84-minute window is something that will help deter threat actors from being able to carry out their tradecraft.
Tom, you mentioned your global threat report, and I know one of the things you highlighted in there was activity that you all are seeing from China. And with the supposition that Vanguard Panda is indeed a Chinese threat actor, it sort of keys right into the recommendations you had in that report.
Absolutely. We introduced over 33 new adversaries last year, tracking from an intel perspective, raising our total to over 200. So it just demonstrates the pervasiveness and opportunity for threat actors to carry out their missions. China in particular was one of the most aggressive in 2022. We observed them targeting nearly all 39 global industry sectors and 20 geographic regions across the globe. So pretty prolific in 2022.
Our thanks to Thomas Etheridge from CrowdStrike for joining us. The research is titled Business as Usual, Falcon Complete MDR Thwarts Novel Vanguard Panda Tradecraft. We'll have a link in the show notes. Tired of cybersecurity mega conferences? MWise is different. With a focused agenda and targeted problem solving, MWise is where security's best go to get better. From September 18th through the 20th in Washington, D.C., you'll join a special community of security's sharpest minds, hear perspectives you might not get anywhere else, and reach a new level of mastery that'll prepare you for what's next. Register early and save at mwise.mandiant.com/conf23. That's mwise.mandiant.com/CONF23. The CyberWire Research Saturday podcast is a production of N2K Networks, proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. This episode was produced by Liz Irvin and senior producer Jennifer Iben. Our mixer is Elliot Peltzman, our executive editor is Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening.